Jeffrey Archer has topped the bestseller lists around the world with sales of over 275 million copies in 115 countries and 49 languages. He's the only author ever to have been #1 bestseller in fiction 19 times, short stories 4 times, and nonfiction. I'm thrilled that Jeffrey is able to join us from the UK today. Stay with us.
Welcome to Lean to the Left, home of no-holds-barred commentary, plus interviews with fascinating people, some of them top experts, others simply with interesting stories to tell. You'll never know who'll show up at Lean to the Left. Now here's your host, Bob Gaddy.
Jeffrey Archer's latest novel, Trader's Gate, is the 6th of his William Warwick series and was published in September. He's one of the most prolific novelists ever, with more than 750,000 readers. Jeffrey is an art collector and amateur auctioneer, conducting around 10 charity auctions a year, and he's raised over 51 million pounds in the last 30 years for good causes. He's been married to Dame Mary Archer, DBE, chair of the Science Museum Group, for 55 years, and they have 2 sons, 2 granddaughters, and 3 grandsons. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely delighted. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
I was thrilled to receive the copy of Trader's Gate and found it to be a typically fascinating Jeffrey Archer book, and have thoroughly enjoyed it. So tell us about that book and how you came to write it.
Mary and I were on a cruise liner going around, and I was invited to dinner by the captain, and I sat next to a man who said, "I can tell you the story for your next book." That usually makes me ask him, "Have you killed your wife?" I haven't had a yes yet, so I said, "Do get in touch with me when you have." Okay. He then went on to say, one worse, he then went on to say, "I can tell you how to steal the crown jewels," which I thought everybody knows that only one man has ever managed to steal the crown jewels. That was Colonel Blood in 1671. And okay, he didn't get outside the tower. So I thought, I'm stuck next to this guy. The soup course has just been served, when he said, "And it might interest you to know that I'm a member of the royal household." I then listened very carefully indeed. Okay. And what he told me in the next 3 minutes was amazing. And by the time I got back to Southampton, I'd done a 30-page outline, but realized I would have to do the most amazing amount of research if Trader's Gate was going to work.
You can tell from reading the book that you did that. The insight into the monarchy and the traditions and what goes on in your country is just amazing in that book. It's always in your books. They're so well researched. The story is rich in intrigue, and it presents a wonderful inside look at Great Britain's traditions. In the case of the book, the Queen's crown, now, which in the theft of the century gets stolen in this book, like you just said, and you just described where the plot originated. Did you ever have any thought in the past that would make the core of a plot for one of your books?
It's such an unlikely story that I immediately dismissed it.
Okay.
When I looked into it more seriously and did the journey from Buckingham Palace to the Tower, and then from the Tower to the House of Lords, and then from the House of Lords to Buckingham Palace, and there are 6 different routes you can take, one of them on water, one of them by tube, and 4 by road. I had to decide which one I would actually use in the book. And of course, I needed the longest one. I needed extra time. As you will know, having read the book, timing is everything. And I needed 6 minutes and 20 seconds in order to make the plot feasible.
Yeah, it worked. Now, your website, you've got summaries and links to all of your books, including your original manuscripts, which are all handwritten. Are you telling me that's how you write your books, by hand? You don't type or use a computer?
I'm 83. I don't know what a computer is. I can turn on a light, and my wife regularly says I forget to turn them off. But I like handwriting. I get up at 6 in the morning. I write from 6 until 8. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 10 until 12. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 2 until 4. I take a 2-hour break. I work from 6 until 8. I'm in bed by 9:30, 10, up again at 5 the next day. And that's the way I like to do it. I can't type. I can't use a computer. And I enjoy writing. And it feels, you've really done it yourself, is how it feels if you write every word.
Yeah, I can see that. I looked over the manuscripts, and you can tell they're original. You've got crossouts and everything. And it just struck me, man, I don't know how this guy does it. All these books, 300 plus pages in each, and he does this all by hand. Now, who interprets your handwriting and
Well,
turns
I'm very fortunate because I have a secretary who has been doing it for many years.
okay.
And I think she can now read almost anything. It's very rare for her to say, what word is that? But
Yeah.
you're quite right. It requires someone to then put it down on paper and give it back to me. And I then work on it triple spaced with a pencil. And the book you have in front of you, I can see it on your right. That is the 14th draft of Traitor's Gate. So you didn't get to see it until the 14th draft.
14th draft. Oh my God. So how long did it take you altogether from start to finish?
I think about 1,000 hours. It usually works out as a year, but in real terms, it's 1,000 hours of writing that goes into each book. I wish there was a shortcut. Of course I do it. 83, I wish there was a shortcut, but there is no shortcut. If you expect people who have been loyal to you over many years to continue to remain loyal, you mustn't shortchange them. You have to work every bit as hard on each book.
Why is it that a lot of authors I know to do series? Now you're into the William Warwick series right now. Do you do that just because you like to have the same character and follow through over a period of time with different plots? Or is it to hook the reader and keep the reader interested for the next William Warwick book? Or is it a combination of both?
I think it probably is a combination,
Yeah.
because when you pick up the pen on the first day and begin Once Upon a Time, you're never quite sure, or at least I'm never quite sure, where it's going. And indeed, after 2 or 3 pages, it might well go in a totally different direction. And what you've got to do is follow that direction. You must not lead the book, it must lead you, because then the reader will follow it as well. And so it's a very difficult question to answer. But every author has a different system, a different way. I confess that I rely a lot on the next idea coming. So I'm not a ballet dancer. I don't sing the opera. I don't play the violin. I tell stories, and I've been lucky enough for them to keep coming.
I don't know, man. You told me you're 83 years old. You must have a fertile imagination that you've honed over all these years, right?
I'm convinced that's a God-given gift. I think imagination, the being a storyteller, is a God-given gift. I don't think you can go down to the supermarket and say, I'll have a packet of storytelling, please.
I think you're right about that. Now, your works include 28 fiction books, 7 short story collections that comprise 95 stories, 3 prison diaries, 3 plays, and 3 children's books. And they're all managed by the Jeffrey Archer Company, which deals with all TV and film interests related to your books. Now, tell us about the Jeffrey Archer Company and how did that get started and why?
I think as you grow older, you have to prepare for assuming you're not immortal and that you're going to have to pass something on to your grandchildren and children. I have 2 sons and 5 wonderful grandchildren. And so my very wise son, who's a banker, turned me into a company which will take care of them after I have gone.
Ah, okay. Very smart. Now, prison diaries, where did they come from? What do they cover?
They were, of course, from experience, and are the only non-fiction books I've written. And I assumed as I wrote them 23 years ago, they would go out of print or just no one would be interested. The shock is they are still selling 23 years later. Oh, I see a dog in the back.
Yeah, that's my. Oh, yeah.
Hello,
Hey,
dog.
Everybody, if you have a look at this, that's Boomer.
Oh.
Boomer is a yellow lab that we got from the local Humane Society. He's about a year old, and he's my pal. He just hangs out with me, and
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So I hope you guys don't mind, but that's.
Well, I'm a bit worried because he's biting my book.
Oh no,
he's licking my book.
He must like it.
He's been waiting for it for weeks, and
I will pick it up so that he does like to chew.
Yeah, I can believe it. Yes.
Most dogs do, but he likes to chew. He has lots of bones to chew on. Anyway, let's get back to you. Now, you said your prison diaries are from experience?
I'm so sorry.
You said your prison diaries are from experience?
Yes, I spent 2 years in prison, and it was absolutely fascinating. And I'm bound to say many of the stories, not least, I'm thinking Prisoner of Birth, several short stories, and 3 prison diaries came out of it. So it was an amazing experience.
It sounds like it was a profitable one, too.
Can't complain.
So you want to tell us why you were in the Hooskow for 2 years?
I'm sorry?
You want to tell us why you were in jail for 2 years?
No, I think we'll move on.
Okay. So how about your short stories? What are some of the themes of your short stories?
I think short stories, the fascinating thing about short stories, and you're quite right, I've written 92 in 6 different volumes. It's the real stories. When you meet someone who tells you a real story, you realize it isn't a novel, and it's never going to be a novel. It's not big enough to be a novel. Okay. But it's a little vignette. It's a little piece of real life. And I have, in my youth, I was in love with Maupassant, J.R.K. Narayan, Somerset Maugham. So I've always loved short stories. Nowadays, they don't seem to be popular, but it hasn't stopped me writing them, particularly if it's a little piece of magic that you know just won't make a full novel.
That's really interesting. I have a friend who's a novelist, and he also enjoys writing short stories. And I've thought perhaps maybe that's where I should focus some attention. At any rate, now you're an art collector, and Trader's Gate trades on that experience. Tell us about your work as an art collector, and is that something that finds its way into your other novels?
It's a love affair, really, and a love affair from a very young age. When I was just before going up to university, I had a girlfriend who was going to university to read art, and the only way I could get her to even give me a second look was to attend art galleries with her. And I fell out of love with her and in love with the art. And I've been collecting ever since. I can't stop. My dear wife, Mary, would like me to stop because there's no room left on the walls. Every wall is full. And I'm just a lover of art, particularly the Impressionist period. That's been where my main collection has been. And so I pretty well buy another piece of work every time a new book comes out.
Oh, I see. So your new books help to finance your art collecting habit.
It's very interesting you say that. I've never met a collector who could afford. One always buys just a little better than you really can afford. So I have a minor collection of Impressionist paintings.
A minor one. I bet it's really minor. All right, let's see here. I have a bunch of questions for you, but I've lost track. I understand you're working on 2 more William Warwick novels. Tell us about those.
Which novels, sorry?
Your William Warwicks. You've got a couple more in
It
the.
all began when I'd done the Clifton Chronicles, and by then I was 77, and I suddenly got this idea for the William Warwicks. They're all individual novels, but I wanted to take a young man from his days as a constable on the beat in London with the Metropolitan Police, right the way through in 8 books to becoming commissioner, every book being an individual story. So he starts on the beat as a constable. He then becomes a detective sergeant. He then becomes an inspector, chief inspector, superintendent. And the book I'm writing at the moment, he's a chief superintendent. And if I live long enough, you will see him as a commander, and then he will be commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Now, I've no doubt William Warwick is well capable of being commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, but I will have to live to the age of 86 if he's going to make it.
You only have 4 years to go. That's not bad. You look pretty good. You can make it, right?
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I hope so too, because I want to see what happens. I'm sure a whole bunch of other people around the world would too. Are your books being adapted to movies and TV?
It was announced last week that Sony, you will have no reason you will have heard, but it's only just been announced that Sony have purchased Cain and Abel. Of course, Cain and Abel was made into a mini-series with Peter Strauss many years ago, and is now going to be made a second time by Sony. It will start with the daughter of Abel, the daughter-in-law of Cain, Florentina, and she will be the main part of the story, and we will go back to the early years of Cain and Abel, and we will go forward to when she becomes president of the United States. So they've purchased all 3 books, and they've already written the first hour, which they're about to send to me. So I'm much looking forward and hopeful that there will be another version of Cain and Abel on the screens in the not too distant future.
Wow, that's amazing. So the answer is yes, we can look forward to seeing. Yeah, okay. Who's your favorite character in all these books you've written?
Favorite character, probably Cain and Abel, of course, has now been read by 100 million people and is on its 132nd reprint. So I'm bound to say the public have decided that those are the 2 characters they like most. I'm sentimental about Mallory from the book Paths of Glory, and whether he did or didn't reach the summit of Everest, his body having been found 700 foot from the top, which is absolutely true. But I wrote the story of whether he did make it to the top or whether he didn't make it to the top, and whether he was actually the first person to conquer Everest. That, from a research point of view, gave me great pleasure. And funnily enough, the critics were very generous on that, on Paths of Glory.
All right. When you write your books, do you do an outline?
Never. I begin once upon a time and pray. When I say never, I know in my mind, I think I know in my mind, Cain and Abel is the story of 2 men, both born on the same day, one with everything, one with nothing. They will only meet once in their life, and that meeting will change their whole lives. I know that much, but then I have to write the story. And so the latest one that you've just read, Traitor's Gate, I know that the wicked, evil Miles Faulkner is going to try and steal the 1937 Imperial State Crown. But that was all I knew when I sat down. And by the end of the first attempt, I the research, I realized I had to do an awful lot of research.
So you did a draft and you weren't happy and you decided you needed to do more research.
Oh, no, you're never happy at the end of the first draft.
Yeah.
Some people hand in the first draft and think it's a book. It isn't. The
Yeah.
first draft is the first draft. You've then got to do more research and you've got to start again. So as I said, what you have got in front of you now is the 14th draft.
When you said it takes, you have 1,000 hours in Trader's Gate, does that include the research or is that just the writing?
No, that's just the writing. I would say another 500 hours on the research, and that will cover a complete year. I usually start on January the 1st, and I usually hand it in sometime in December.
Okay. When you first began, what year was it that you wrote your first novel?
After leaving the House of Commons, I wrote my first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, which was a major triumph. It sold 3,000 copies, just about sold 3,000 copies. Took them a year to sell 3,000 copies. So it wasn't exactly an auspicious start, but that was my first book. And that was 19... So I've been writing I've been writing for 50 years now.
Okay, so 1965, your first book came out. It
was turned down by 15 publishers.
Oh, wow.
The 16th publisher scraped together £3,000 and just about published it.
What do you mean just about?
I've sold 27,500,000 copies.
Jeez. Oh man. You're blowing me away, man. I keep forgetting my questions. I had another question I wanted to ask you while you were talking. Do you find it difficult as you go through the process of researching and writing? Do you find it difficult to get it to where you want it? 15, what'd you say, 14 drafts, 15 drafts?
Yes, it's very hard work. It gets easier in theory because once you've got the whole story down, it's put back in front of me in typewritten form, triple spaced, and I work with a pencil, and then again and again. So in theory, it gets easier and easier, but then a disaster can occur when you're on about the 6th or 7th draft. You suddenly have a total switch idea, which will send the book in a totally different direction. You go to bed saying, oh, I can't be bothered to do that. And then you wake up knowing you've got to do it because of how much better it will make the book.
Oh, so you might be on draft number 10 and all of a sudden you decide to take the plot in an entirely different direction?
Yes, that can happen. It doesn't usually happen as late as number 10. But I got I'm on draft number 13 of the present book, and I got an idea this morning which will switch the last 100 pages in a different direction.
This guy is just a lunatic. Crazy. That's incredible. All right, so when you start, have you got any idea how this book is going to end?
No. You may have a vague idea and think, but no, you have absolutely no idea. You pray and pray. I wrote a book many years ago called First Among Equals, the story of 4 young men entering the British House of Commons. Yeah. I knew one of them was going to become Prime Minister. I didn't know until 3 pages from the end which one it was going to be.
Wow. All right, with respect to Trader's Gate, did you know, obviously the story is about the theft of the crown. Did you know how that was going to work out when you began?
No, I knew that the timing was very important. I knew that I needed 6 minutes and 20 seconds to catch out the idea, and I had to discover how to steal that 6 minutes and 20 seconds, because without it, I couldn't actually get my hands on the real crown. Once I'd mastered how to get the 6 minutes and 20 seconds, it all fell into shape.
All right, now the 6 minutes and 20 seconds, explain to our listeners why why that was so crucial.
Because there is a period of time between when the police pick the crown up and when it is handed over to the authorities,
Yeah.
which is pretty much the same every year when it's taken to Buckingham Palace for the Queen to prepare for the Queen's speech. But if you could slow the process down by 6 minutes and 20 seconds, then you have an opportunity, a window of opportunity to actually steal the crown.
You said that your day is 2 hours. You get up and you work for 2 hours, and then you take a couple hours off, and then you come back and work for 2 more hours, and you keep doing that until into the evening. Is that a rigid schedule? Do you vary from it? Do you?
Never.
I think I'll go do something else today.
No, certainly not. On the first draft, when I go away to my home in Mallorca to write the first draft in January, it is absolutely rigid. The moment you start to say, I think I'll take an hour off and watch a bit of television, I think I'll just have a rest. No, you'll never finish the book. You have to be absolutely disciplined and get on with it. There's 1,000 excuses not to write a book.
Okay.
There's only one excuse to write one.
All right. What advice would you give to young novelists who want to become the next you?
Do not assume after you've finished the first draft, you've finished. Too many young people, rather, not their fault, it's very human and very understandable, then show it to their father or their mother or their girlfriend or their boyfriend and ask their opinion. Their opinion is of no value at all. They will lie. They will tell you it's wonderful. They will tell you are the new Charles Dickens. Show it to someone who doesn't know you and will give an honest opinion. Remember that only one book in 1,000 is published. One book in 1,000 that is published gets onto the bestsellers list. One book in 1,000 that gets onto the bestsellers list makes it to #1 on the New York Times. And then you'll realize what you're up against. Don't think anybody can write a novel, because anybody can't play the violin, sing countertenor at the opera house, or be a ballet dancer.
I think that my experience certainly bears that out. All right. How about your favorite authors? Do you read other people's?
Dead or alive?
I don't care.
Stefan Zweig, I think, is probably the greatest all-rounder I've read. I think Beware of Pity is a masterpiece. I think he has that rare ability of being able to write beautifully, but tell a good story at the same time. His tragic death, in fact, he committed suicide when he believed Hitler would win the war, was a great loss to literature. But luckily, we have 2 novels, several short stories, and some of the best non-fiction about Europe that's ever been written. So I'd say Stefan Zweig was my favorite author.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned a little while ago that you guys started this company, the Jeffrey Archer Company, with an eye towards the day that you're no longer with us. I want to know, what is the legacy that you want people to think about after you're gone with respect to your work that you've done all these years?
You pray, of course, that people will go on reading you after you've gone. That's a real legacy. There are 4 of us, Stephen King, John Grisham, John le Carré, and myself, who've survived 40 years and are still being read. And as Cain and Abel is on its 132nd reprint, there's no reason to believe it will suddenly stop selling. It sold 250,000 last year, and I had a letter only 2 days ago saying they'd sold 5,200 copies this year in Vietnam. So I think one can believe it will go on. So to answer your question, in all honesty, legacy is the hope that readers will go on reading you long after you've gone.
Okay, I think that's probably a guarantee in your case. Jeffrey, I really have enjoyed talking to you. I could
Very
go on for hours, but I do appreciate you being with us and look forward to your next books, man. Really do.
Very kind. Thank you very much indeed. A fascinating interview. Very worthwhile. Thank you very much indeed.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this Lean to the Left video and that you learned something as well. Please come back on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that I hope you find interesting, entertaining, and enlightening. And you can check out the schedule of upcoming shows, guests, and topics at podcast.leantotheleft.net. You can also subscribe to our audio version there or to our video shows here at YouTube. And follow us on social media. Facebook at the Lean to the Left Podcast, Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at BobGaddy_Lean to the Left, and TikTok at Lean to the Left. Our goal is to be informative and entertaining as we and our guests comment on the latest developments in the news and about the social issues that concern us all. This is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.